Moton Geography is back for the third episode of our City Sunday series. This week's video will be covering the geography of the Swiss municipality Geneva and the incredibly expansive history of the region. Renowned as the worldwide center of diplomacy, Geneva is not only a symbol of Swiss culture, but of international cooperation around the world. Let's start, as usual, by going back to explore the history of Geneva.
Nomadic peoples have roamed Europe for millennia, but we don't have many records of civilization in Geneva until 500 BC. At this point in its history, the city was a fortified settlement of Allobroges, a Gallic tribe living in the Alps region. Later, in 58 BC, Romans began to settle in Geneva, exploiting the city's economic connections and unique position between Switzerland, Italy, and France. Following the dissolution of the Roman Empire and the onset of the Middle Ages, Geneva was integrated into the Holy Roman Empire as a principality controlled by a feudal leader. Geneva was incorporated into the unique medieval system of feudalism, in which the local nobility were granted land from the monarch in exchange for military service, and lower farmer classes supplied the higher classes with food, with the promise of protection from barbarians.
Oof!
With the end of feudalism and the end of the Middle Ages, the Genevese nobility established an independent state in 1535. It was around this time that French theologian John Calvin traveled to Geneva preaching Protestant values and helping reform the government of the city-state. Despite encountering some resistance, the Protestant ideas of John Calvin, John Knox, and Theodore de Beza spread through the city, giving it the nickname Protestant Rome. Protestants from all across the continent sought refuge in Geneva, which contributed to both a population and economic explosion in the city. Independence, though, did not last for long. In the 18th century, Geneva came under the influence of Catholic France, and in 1798, the revolutionary French government annexed Geneva. Geneva remained under French rule until the end of the famous Napoleonic Wars. On September 12, 1814, the Canton, a state-like division of Switzerland, containing Geneva, joined the Federation of Switzerland as part of the Federalist Treaty laid out by Napoleon. In 1846, James Fasey and other radicals revolted against a highly aristocratic government in Geneva and overthrew it. This sparked a brief civil war between Fasey's government and a group of secessionist majority Catholic cantons, but in the end, Switzerland remained united. James Fasey drafted a new constitution, created the Bank of Geneva, and destroyed the city's fortifications to allow for expansion. In 1864, Henri Dunant founded the Red Cross in Geneva, the first of many international organizations located in the city. Geneva was the site of the first League of Nations meeting in 1920, and also has hosted the European headquarters of the UN since 1946. The economy of the city continued to flourish after World War II, despite remaining neutral during the war. In 1985, Geneva was the site of a historic initial summit between US President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. Just recently, in 2013, the P5+1 negotiated the prerequisite to the Iran deal there. Despite its war-torn past, today Geneva remains an international landmark, historical wonder, and popular tourist destination. Geneva has been the site of the most important world conventions to discuss the international standards during wartime. The most famous of these conventions took place in 1949, in which nations updated the standards previously established in 1929, which added protections for wounded and sick soldiers, prisoners of war, and civilians in occupied territory.
Geneva is located in the southwestern tip of Switzerland at the junction of Lake Geneva and the famous Rhone River. The The city lies in a valley between the French Alps to the east and the Jura mountain range to the west. Inside of Geneva, the river and the lake divides the city into a classic European city grid, consisting of the dense historical center and surrounding modern, mainly residential neighborhoods. Located on the outskirts of the city is a thriving industrial and transport sector, where labor opportunities have attracted emigration to the city since the 1940s. Instead of your normal polluting industrial activity, Geneva hosts a diverse economy offering work in the sciences, advanced manufacturing, and private banking. Geneva also attracts many tourists worldwide to its national museums, botanical gardens, and many, many music halls. Geneva's transportation network is controlled by the TPG, which has jurisdiction over the city's trams, buses, and shuttle buses. The trams of Geneva, which were opened in 1862, have since expanded to be one of the largest tram networks in Europe, with 5 full lines. The tallest building in Geneva is located in the Lignon complex of Vernier, Geneva. The building is part of a modern urban development project consisting of a string of luxury apartment buildings. Thank you for watching the 3rd episode of Moton Geography's City Sunday series. Please subscribe to this channel and like this video. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for updates, information, and even polls for our next video. If you are feeling extremely generous, make sure to check out the official Moton Geography Patreon to support us and keep us running. Thank you, and see you next Sunday.